All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So the combines this week, I'm really looking forward to it. I got a big video coming on all the different prospects, going through all the different positions, guys to watch, maybe storylines that I'm really looking forward to, or maybe questions that I want figured out. But free agency kicks off March 9th. It's almost here. It is almost freaking here. And I love free agency, man. There's nothing like the feeling of like getting the notification, or like you have the TV on in the background, you see like the breaking news thing flash across the bottom of the screen. The New York Jets agree to terms with, and it's like ... and you're waiting. Crazy feeling. In this one, I wanted to break down offensive free agent targets for the New York Jets. Let's be real, we're going to be spending money. We have over $80 million before cuts, before restructures. And the first name up is Alec Pierce. So Alec Pierce is set to hit the open market, but there's a big belief that he could just be back with Indianapolis, whether it's the franchise tag, whether the Colts sign him to an extension. But it does make you wonder, okay, what exactly is the plan for the Colts? Because Daniel Jones is a free agent. Again, Alec Pierce is a free agent. They have $35 million in available cap space. And if you look at all the free agency predictions, a lot of insiders are predicting the Colts to be heavy pursuers of Trey Hendrickson, who's arguably the best free agent out on the market, or set at the open market, right? So you're, of course, to reunite with Lou Anarumo, 4-3 D end, he makes a lot of sense. Massive upgrade there. Also with Kwity Paye being a free agent, Nick Cross is a free. Like the Colts have a lot of players right now that are projected to be on the open market. In other words, they have a lot of things that they have to fill with $35 million in space. It does make me ask the question, what happens with Michael Pittman? We're going to talk about him in just a second as kind of a bonus here. But looking at Alec Pierce, I think he's undeniably a fun watch, right? When you want to talk about big plays, when you want to talk about plays down the field. I mean, you look at his overall production based off of the volume that he receives, it's honestly crazy, right? Him winning 50-50 balls, winning at the point of attack, red zone threat. Like Alec Pierce checks a ton of boxes, and you feel like, man, is he the prototypical wide receiver 2 or what? He's coming off a great season, so you're not really projecting him or anything like that. Frank Reich actually drafted Alec Pierce when he was with the Indianapolis Colts. But here's the thing, right? Again, all signs are pointing to him being back with Indy, and let's just say he does hit the open market, and for whatever reason the Colts don't franchise tag him as kind of like a last resort. Every single team that needs a wide receiver will be calling. And every single team with cap space will be calling. So Alec Pierce, you feel like, okay, even if he does hit the open market, you are going to have to spend a ton. Wide receiver 2s in this market get paid a massive amount. Jacoby Myers got $20 million per season. This is a team in the Jaguars that drafted Travis Hunter 2nd overall. They traded up for him. They had Parker Washington emerge on the scene, and they also had Brian Thomas, a former first-round pick, on the roster, and Jacoby Myers is getting $20 million. So these wideouts are going to be getting paid. So if Alec Pierce say he has 7 or 8 suitors in the event that he does hit the open market, yeah, that price tag is going to be driven up. So I love Alec Pierce. I want the Jets to go bring Alec Pierce in if he's available, but I do have a line with Pierce. I'm not exceeding $6 million, $27 million for Alec Pierce. That's just me personally, because with Garrett Wilson's extension kicking in, that's just what, $55 to $60 million-ish dollars in 2 players at wide receiver. And granted, you kind of feel like the NFL's going this way, but I feel like maybe we can get some better value dollar for dollar. So Alec Pierce, probably the number 1 free agent wide receiver set at the open market, but will cost a ton. Now, there's a wide receiver that I do feel like makes so much sense for this Jets team. I feel like a broken record. I've been talking about him for months. It's Jauan Jennings from the 49ers. Someone who wants security, someone who wants guaranteed money, but you feel like he's going to be coming in at a cheaper price tag compared to maybe some of the other bigger named wide receivers that could be on the move. Jauan Jennings wears so many different hats within an offense. He can line up as your slot. He can line up as your prototypical Z wide receiver. He can line up as an X. Right, we saw that when Brandon Ayuk had when he had the injury. Right, who did they ask to fill Ayuk's shoes? It was Jauan Jennings, and he did it perfectly. He had the best season of his career that year, over 940 receiving yards. You look at the amount of things that the 49ers offense asks Jennings to do. They've asked him to throw the ball. They've asked him to carry the ball on reverses, right? Catch a screen, take it upfield, work off the middle of the field, right? Having Brock Purdy work off of play action. He could hurt defenses down the field. When I look at Jauan Jennings, if you're a Darren Mougey, if you're a Frank Reich, if you are an Aaron Glenn at 6'2", you're looking at just the amount of boxes that he can check. Okay, he can play on the inside, the outside, down the field, intermediate, short game. We can really do whatever we want as far as the alignment, moving him around, pre-snap movement. We can put a lot on his plate. He seems eager to want more responsibility. That was kind of another thing that happened in San Francisco, right? Because people will say like, oh, he was holding out. He wanted the big contract. Look at how many people are getting paid on that 49ers team. Kittle, McCaffrey, Purdy, Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk got a deal. Deebo Samuel got a deal, years prior. It felt like the only one left standing was Jauan Jennings, right? He's doing all this work. He's being asked to do all these different things. Ricky Pearsall was a first-round pick, but you kind of felt like Jennings was the one that's being asked to do all these different things. He's the one that's consistently showing up. He's the one that's not really causing drama. I don't mind Jauan Jennings for, at the time holding out to try to get some security here. I mean, with the amount of stuff that they asked him to do, and you look at all these other big contracts, they're getting hurt. They're missing time. So again, I don't want to look at Jauan Jennings and label him as, oh, he's a selfish player. He wanted a contract. No, I feel like he flat out deserved it. So I think he of course does fit the Frank Reich offense, but B, man, the things that you can do with him and Garrett Wilson on the field at the same time, because Garrett can line up on the inside, Garrett can line up on the outside. Think about all the different pre-snap looks that you can give a defense. With Jauan Jennings, who can play, again, in whatever role you're talking about as far as the wide receiver position, inside, outside, X, Z, whatever you want, Jauan Jennings can do. And again, with the versatility with Garrett, think about all the different mismatches and stuff that you can create. Man, you can really get into favorable looks, create favorable matchups with just adding Jauan Jennings alone. I also think you could probably get him, if we're talking about the wide receivers on the open market, Jauan feels like the one guy that's probably going to get under 20 mil because he hasn't had that 1,000-yard season yet. I still feel like it'll be pretty high. I think if you're the Jets, we're just assuming we have to overpay him. But if you can go grab Jauan Jennings for $18, $19 million a season, I would be all for that. Jennings to me feels like one of the top targets that the Jets should be going after when, of course, free agency opens up. Now, another wide receiver that's interesting is Romeo Doubs, man. And one thing that really gets me fired up with Doubs is I know exactly who he is. He's consistently himself. Let's just take a look at his numbers, right? First year as a rookie, 2022, in only 7 starts, 13 games played, 425 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. I know that doesn't really sound like a lot, but let's just look at the Jets wide receiving numbers, the receiving numbers for this past season. Then, of course, you look at 2023, 674 receiving yards with 8 touchdowns and 16 starts, really came into his own, had a big boost from 42 catches to 59 catches. 2024, touchdowns drop a little bit, but he only plays in 13 games with 12 starts, 601 receiving yards. And then he's coming off a season with 724 receiving yards with 6 touchdowns and 55 grabs. These numbers are virtually the same, right? Give or take 10 catches, right? 100 or so receiving yards, a couple touchdowns, give or take. Like, I know who Doubs is. And when you can put out consistency like this, chances are you're not really going to be slowed down by, this defense or a defensive coordinator has cracked the code and has figured you out. No, if the code was cracked, if the formula was solved with Romeo Doubs, he wouldn't be putting up these types of numbers. And again, we're not really looking for a 1,200 yard wide receiver here or anything like that. I mean, yeah, of course that would be nice, but we need someone to complement Garrett Wilson. Garrett is going to be taking, he's going to be getting the looks. He's going to be the first read in a lot of passing concepts. Who can get open consistently is the second option, the wide receiver too, right? Whoever that guy is, who's going to be the second option within these routes. So I think Doubs can make sense, but I haven't seen any sort of reports linking him to the Jets. I've seen a lot of stuff with him and the Raiders, the Cardinals, and the Dolphins. Those are the three teams that I consistently see popping up. Also, Cleveland, I think, is interesting, but Cleveland, you just feel like they have so much work to do on the offensive line, and with them having 2 first-round picks, they're probably going to dump one in a wide receiver. And, of course, you could always make the argument last season, there was zero buzz about any of the players that the Jets actually signed. All the free agent expectations from the reporters and whatnot, all the buzz, never happened. Now, the last wide receiver who I want to talk about here, I feel like is so underrated. It's Wan'Dale Robinson, right? When you talk about a free agent entity, right? Someone who you can look at and say, what are we going to be getting here? Is he projecting in the right direction? Is he trending upwards? Wan'Dale Robinson is an easy yes. First of all, 24 years old. Sweet. So he could sign a 4-year deal and be 28 in the prime of his career at the end of a 4-year contract. So you're getting Wan'Dale right as he's starting to peak. You take a look at his production through his first 4 years with the Giants, where, mind you, not great coaching, not great quarterback play, not a ton of help around him. He's gotten better every single year. Year 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. You're looking at the situation that he was in this season. Okay, he's playing with Jackson Dart, a rookie. He's playing with Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, Malik Neighbors goes down. Not really a ton there, right? And he goes out and manages to put up over 1,000 yards from the slot. Then you look at yards per reception, 11. That means that Wan'Dale Robinson is averaging a first down every time he catches the football. And he had 92 catches this past season, again, from the slot. That is a massive amount of yardage gained. Then you look at the separation numbers, and this is something that gets me really fired up. He's top 5 in football in yards separated between himself and a defensive back. That's right up there with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Top 5 in separation yardage, right? The distance created between him and a DB. So if you're a Jets team with a brand new coordinator, B, you're coming off a year where the passing attack was downright awful. C, you don't know who the quarterback's going to be. It could be a vet. It could be a rookie. Either way, we're not getting Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. We're not getting a type of player like that. So ideally, we want to get a wide receiver in the mix who can create, who can separate on his own. So from all of those angles, Wan'Dale Robinson, man, does he make sense? Also, because he plays in the slot, you also wonder, will he get $20 million per season? Probably. Like, you can argue against it because he is a smaller wide receiver. That was one of his biggest knocks coming out of Kentucky, where he was a second-round pick, but he's not the biggest guy. You're not going to line him up and throw goal line fades to him, right? He's not going to be the guy boxing out players, high-pointing the football, but he can rip defenses to shreds over the middle of the field. That is very beneficial. Whoever it is, that quarterback can drop back and consistently find someone who averages 11 yards per reception, someone who can consistently separate from defensive backs in the short and intermediate parts of the field, over the middle of the field where the ball is coming out within 3 steps. A half step to a 3-step drop. Boom, you can hit Wan'Dale Robinson over and over and over again. And then also getting into maybe some cool packages with Garrett and Wan'Dale lined up both in the slot. Like, stacking those guys because Garrett is a fantastic route runner and separator as well. So, if you stack those guys to the line of scrimmage, think about, the different release packages that you can put out there. So I think Wan'Dale makes a ton of sense, especially if you can snack him for like under 20 mil. Like, sign me up for that every day of the week. Now, last bonus wide receiver here is Michael Pittman. Now, of course, he's a bonus. He's not actually set to hit the open market, but like we were talking about before, there's a chance that he could be released from the Colts. Dude, if Michael Pittman is out on the free agency market, is there a more seamless fit when you talk about size, when you talk about production, when you talk about offensive system fit, when you talk about working with, your former head coach that drafted you in the second round out of USC? Michael Pittman's been awesome. Comes in, doesn't rock the boat. He's a great teammate, supports others. I would say he's a leader. He would take pressure off of Garrett, provides a different skill set compared to Garrett Wilson. If the Jets add Michael Pittman, we are operating on a new level of offensive football. Now, I don't want to pretend like Michael Pittman's going to come out and catch 125 passes or anything like that, obviously. But, man, if you can give me consistent wide receiver 2 numbers every single year, boom, boom, I know exactly who you are. I know exactly how you fit. I know the coach loves you and you love the coach. And you're not going to come in and demand more targets or, start beef with Garrett or the quarterback. Like, I want more targets. Throw me the ball my way. No, he understands his role. It's wide receiver 2, boundary type of wide receiver. And what's really cool, too, about Pittman is he can line up on the outside. A.D. Mitchell can continue to line up as your X wide receiver. And Garrett can continue working from the slot. So I think the Jets would add a lot with Pittman, man. A lot. You'd add size, you'd add playmaking, you'd add consistency, you'd add run game blocking. There's a lot, man. I really, really like Michael Pittman as an option. I'm hoping he gets released for our sake. Now, let's talk about the offensive line, right? The interior offensive line. I think really a steady, safe play would just be, hey, re-sign John Simpson. Let's not rattle the cage. Let's not maybe screw up a strength of this football team. I mean, quite frankly, the offensive line, I feel like, is in the best shape it's been. I mean, even before Sam Darnold was drafted, our offensive line is good, man. It is good. That it's undeniable. Olu, Pittman, we have some legitimate pieces there. And I think Josh Myers was brought back on the 2-year deal, and it's really looking like left guard and depth are kind of the 2 concerns. But again, if John Simpson's out there and you can bring him back, and again, you know what he is as a player, he's a veteran, he's fully bought into the Aaron Glenn message. I really like that. Is John Simpson your best guard? Is he a top 5, top 10 guard in football? No, but I think if your worst offensive lineman is John Simpson, you're in a pretty good spot. Also, if you have to pay less than 7 mil per season to keep a guy like that, to me, it's just like, after a season where he's played the entire year, he's fully healthy, he's durable, he's reliable. I like that. I think the Jets have not had durable, reliable players in the offensive line for a very long time. Speaking of that, you can argue bring back AVT because AVT is the better player compared to John Simpson. I agree. I think AVT is the higher upside. I think if Vera Tucker was healthy, he'd be getting a massive contract this offseason, whether it was from the Jets or another team. But the problem is he's not. And so it's so easy, just, AVT's injured, just throw him an incentive base, 1 year, $2.5 million that can go up to like 10, 11, 12. Just give him an incentive base deal. Vera Tucker, like the Lions need interior offensive line help. The Eagles potentially need interior offensive line help. The Browns, the Raiders. There's a lot of teams that are either really good or have a ton of money to spend on Vera Tucker. If I'm Vera Tucker, I'm not accepting that. I think someone else on the outside, because it's funny, if you listen to other people talk about AVT, like guys that aren't fans of the Jets or associated with the Jets in any way, like they're just talking about maybe their own team. It's like, oh, we can go get Vera Tucker. Like when he's on the field and he's healthy right now, like we could go out and give him, 13 mil per season. Like, yeah, he's had some season enders, but he's healthy right now. The optic around AVT, like as a Jet fan, and if you're not a Jet fan, feels completely different. So again, if you're Vera Tucker, I'm not signing some low-end incentive-based $2-3 million deal. Now, you can also argue, hey, you know what? Why settle for John Simpson? Why settle for the incentive-based AVT? We have the cap space. What if we just go out there and go land the best guard in free agency? I would say that's Isaac Seumalo from Pittsburgh, right? 32 years old. He's a veteran, 6'4", 303. Really, really good in pass protection. He's a strong, powerful guard that can open up holes in the running game. I think he moves really well, being 32 years old and whatnot. Problem is, you're probably going to have to pay him 13 to 14-ish mil. And if you want to factor in the Jets overpay, 14.5 to 15 mil if you want to land him. So what kind of sounds the best, right? Going full, swinging for the fences with Isaac, incentive-based, hypothetical, hope, cross our fingers with AVT and hope that he stays healthy. Bring back John Simpson kind of feels like the safest option. Or maybe we can draft one, but still, I feel like the Jets, it would be in their best interest to at least sign one veteran guard. Now, on the offensive line topic, I've seen some arguments with Tyler Linderbaum, and I think Tyler Linderbaum is very good, very talented, obviously. If the Jets were to sign Tyler Linderbaum, we would legitimately have a serious conversation of the offensive line going from top 12 to top 6. But here are my hesitations with Linderbaum. Again, if that's the big money swing that the Jets want to make, cool. Of course, I'm going to support the move. We're going to be getting better with Tyler Linderbaum, for sure. But the price, probably looking at $17 to $18 million is the going rate for Tyler Linderbaum. So to outprice maybe Baltimore, to outprice John Harbaugh, the New York Giants, a team that needs a center, we're probably going to have to overpay. All right, we are going to have to overpay, I would say, by a decent amount. So that's the first kind of hiccup there. My second hurdle or pushback would be, with Linderbaum being added to the mix, yes, we would be getting better, but the offensive line is already a strength of the team. So for $20 million per season, is it the best allocation of resources to say, hey, you know what, let's take our very good offensive line and make it great with Tyler Linderbaum for $20 million, and we'd have to figure out left guard. So it's not just $20 million and that's it. It's $20 million for Linderbaum, then we have to figure out left guard, then we have to go re-sign depth pieces. Okorafor, Max Mitchell, Newman, whoever you want, right? That all of a sudden is a lot of money. Like, that adds up very quickly. Again, that $80 million can really start to shrink. $20 million got for Linderbaum. You got to factor in probably a combined $5 million for the depth pieces, and then 5 to anywhere from maybe anywhere from 4 to 7 for a starting left guard. Now all of a sudden we're at $50 million cap space, and it's just we haven't done anything at quarterback. We still don't know what's happening with Brees. Wide receiver has not been addressed. All the needs on defense haven't been addressed. I think the thought of Linderbaum just on the Jets wearing the green and white, blocking for whoever's playing quarterback, that's really cool. But the price, and to me, I think is a lot. And I also don't know if $20 million per season plus the rest is worth is worth it, right? The offensive line is a very good unit without Linderbaum. So we're going to be spending that much money on a very good unit with a team that has talent issues all over the place and depth issues all over the place and one of the worst defenses in football. I don't really like that. And then my last kind of argument against Linderbaum here, and this is me just being honest, if you want Linderbaum, that's freaking awesome. If news comes out, the New York Jets are signing Tyler Linderbaum, I'm going to be fired up. But worst case scenario, the Jets have 2 players on the roster that can play the center position, Joe Pittman and Josh Myers. And if need be, Newman can play center. So it would be different, in my opinion, if we didn't have a center on the roster, right, where it was literally vacant on the depth chart. It's whoa, we have cap space. Let's go make it happen with Tyler. But because Pittman can play it, because Josh Myers can play it, in emergency situations, Newman can play it, I don't feel the need to go out and spend that money on a unit that's already pretty good. Now, let's talk about quarterback. So I think the first one that gets thrown out a lot is a player that is not officially released, but is going to be released. It's Kirk Cousins. You can maybe argue, okay, he wants to stick around with, or Stefanski might want to keep him around. Penix, is coming off the lower body injury, the ACL. Maybe it makes sense to keep Cousins and have him start for a couple months, not for that price point. So for that reason, I fully believe that Kirk Cousins will be released. They recently reworked the deal. And at the end of the day, Cousins is a starter. Like, Cousins believes in his mind, like, I can still play, I can still start. I'm not a backup. I'm not a backup. And the Jets obviously would give Cousins that starting runway. They would give him, as we just talked about, a great offensive line, a wide receiver 1. If we go out and we signed a Wan'Dale, a Jauan Jennings, Doubs, Pierce, Pittman, whoever, you are getting a solid wide receiver 2 option as well. And we haven't even hit the draft. Not to mention Frank Reich at offensive coordinator. And Cousins and Reich have an off-field connection. I mean, Cousins to me makes a lot of sense. He's not going to be asking for 40. I mean, with Cousins, I don't really know, but you kind of feel like he's not going to be asking for $40 million this season or anything. But look, it's the quarterback position. It gets paid a lot. It's so important. If you don't have one, you're kind of screwed. I would like Kirk Cousins. Your stopgap. You could draft somebody, take your pick, a Ty Simpson, a Drew Aller, a Garrett Nussmeier, whoever you want. You feel like Cousins, like it's not going to be a Penix situation where, Penix is like breathing down Cousins' neck, and Cousins signed the 4-year contract initially to like be the guy, and now in the span of 1 month he's not the guy. With the Jets, you can lay everything out on the table in contract negotiations. You're going to be the guy for a season or two, however you want to, however the Jets want to set it up, and you're going to help this young guy take over in 1 to 2 seasons. That transparency, I think, will speak to Cousins. So I would definitely look into it. Now, Marcus Mariota is another free agent option, someone who you just kind of feel like is steady, right? He's not going to give you the crazy upside. He's not going to give you the top 10 quarterback production, but he can drop back and hit an open pass. He's not going to be overwhelmed by an offensive play call, overwhelmed by an offensive system, overwhelmed by what he's seeing on the defensive side. In fact, if you actually look at the passing production numbers between Jaden Daniels and Mariota from last season, it wasn't this massive drop-off. It was kind of around the same mark. Marcus is a vet. Marcus, I still feel like he's better than just being, just relegated to the bench for the remainder of his career. I'm not saying he's a full-time starter, but if you want kind of that fringe guy, you kind of feel like Jameis Winston was in this boat. Kind of felt like Tyrod Taylor with the Chargers and the Texans and the Giants. Like, he was in this boat where they can come in and like, if you want to say, okay, he wins the job, cool, but you have doubts about him starting like for a full 17-game season. But Marcus would be an obvious upgrade over what we had this past year. Drop back, hit the open guy, and he could also give you a little bit with his legs, right? Cousins, Brissett, Mac Jones, these guys can't really do much with their legs moving around. But Mariota can. Not saying he's Lamar or anything, not even saying that he's old Mariota, but he can at least move. You could roll bootlegs, you could get him outside the pocket, run quarterback draws with him on like third and mediums. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with Mariota's legs. It's not just like, he's not washed athletically. Now, I also wonder if Jimmy Garoppolo will get a look, because that's someone who, man, if you want to talk about the Frank Reich offense, it really requires mental processing. Jimmy Garoppolo has literally worked with some of the smartest offensive minds in the entire not even just offensive minds, some of the greatest coaches: Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. There's a lot that Jimmy Garoppolo understands about offensive football. He's not back there, not picking up the system at all, not understanding what he's seeing, not in the slightest. Garoppolo, from a mental standpoint, I think really makes a lot of sense for Frank Reich and this Jets team. And I feel like whenever Garoppolo has been playing behind, or whenever he's had an above average offensive line, he's firing, he's hitting passes over the middle of the field, he can check it down, no problem. Like, the offense rolls. He could play in rhythm. But when he has a bad offensive line, that's when you start to see Garoppolo start to fall apart, right? Because he can't really move, and he makes panic decisions with the football when he's under pressure. Garrett Nussmeier actually reminds me a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo. That's my personal pro comp. So it'd be interesting to think about like a Garoppolo and a Nussmeier pairing. Now, Geno Smith could potentially be released. I think he could be an interesting option. But the turnovers just bother me with Geno, man. Like when he cuts the turnovers down and just plays like a game manager, he's functional. He has a good enough arm. He can hit guys in stride down the field, up the seam, deep ball, hitting short passes, just like his days back at West Virginia, like crossers, mesh routes, all those kinds of concepts. I think he could check it down. He could obviously move a little bit, but the turnovers are just crazy. Just launching it into double coverage, being panicked, hucking it up there, inaccurate passes. Geno feels to me kind of like a last resort as opposed to the guy that you go all in with on the first day of free agency. But it's a name nonetheless. I still feel like Geno can actually play the position. And to be fair, if you want to back Geno or if you are maybe in favor of bringing Smith back to the green and white, you can say, okay, well, he was literally in the worst situation in the entire NFL. Worst offensive line with the worst offensive line coaching, with the worst offensive coordinator in football who was fired midway through the season. And Pete Carroll's head coaching job was not impressive in the slightest and was fired after 1 year. So head coach problems, offensive coordinator problems, O-line problems, not enough weapons, not enough help. The team drafts Ashton Jeanty in the top 10 to think, like, okay, like a win now type of move. We're going to be this run heavy attack. Then they're not doing that. They're taking these aggressive deep shots down. It just made no sense to me. Brock Bowers was hurt. They traded Jacoby Myers. He didn't even want to be there. So you can say, hey, Geno was in an absolutely awful situation, and most quarterbacks would struggle to be in that spot. But yeah, I need to see Geno cut down on the turnovers before I feel like great about it. No, I don't want to dive too much into the trades, but just to rattle off a couple names here. Jacoby Brissett obviously makes a lot of sense. Mac Jones. I wonder if Andy Dalton could maybe be in the mix, right? Someone who's worked with Frank Reich before in the past. He's up there in age, though. But every time I think about Andy Dalton, I think about, when I think about Andy Dalton in a Panthers uniform, I always think about him throwing for like 350 yards, just torching defenses. I don't know why I have that thought, but he's been around for a long, long time, and his absolute, like, he's on Josh McCown levels of leadership and teammate, like helping out young players and making sure that those guys are in, good positions to grow. So yeah, a couple of trade. The point is the Jets have got a lot of options this offseason at quarterback, free agent targets, trade targets. We'll see what happens with the draft, but I think ideally for me, we bring in a vet, short-term, 1 to 2 year contract. Then we target a rookie. If Reich, if Glenn, if these guys love Ty Simpson, I'm not going to argue against it. But I think for me, I would rather take that 16th overall pick, go BPA, go land, a D tackle, a corner one, a wide receiver if he falls. Use 33, 44, build up the team a little bit. And then on day 3, maybe that top of round 4 pick 103, where, by the way, the Titans have the first pick. Don't need a quarterback. Raiders have the second pick. With Mendoza, assuming Mendoza's a Raider, they're not going to be picking a quarterback at 102 unless there's some weird RG3 Kirk Cousins situation with Kubiak, but I think that's, unlikely. So there's a chance that the Jets could very well have their pick of all of the guys on day 3. The Nussmeyers, if he doesn't rise, the Drew Allers, Cole Payton's getting some buzz. I don't think he's a 4th round pick, but there's going to be some options for a young developmental guy as well. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. Tomorrow, defensive free agents. That video should be a little bit longer. Going to be going through some more names, but yeah, as always, go Jets.